Do that if she was a spy as well?
She would use her clothesline to send signals to Abraham Woodhull. She's pretty creative.
How did she do that exactly?
Well, she would always hang something different. If she hung a black petticoat, it meant Brewster was in town. Abraham Woodhull counted how many white handkerchiefs were on the wash, and he knew which one of the 6 covers Brewster was in.
This woman is crazy, but smart. Wow, and she never got caught?
I doubt it, because she eventually ended up dying without being imprisoned.
Wow, she was pretty heroic. Did she ever get back to her family?
Yes, her and her husband were reunited after war and had another kid, George Washington Strong. When they died, they were both buried in the Smith-Strong family graveyard on Cemetery Road in New York.
Well, that was a pretty great talk to start off our discussion today, don't you think? Now, wouldn't you be irritated as well? The British soon passed down a parliament called the Tea Act that consisted of the colonists being taxed for every tea load that was brought into the port, especially the Boston harbor. The British passed this parliament to assist the East India Company and help them overcome the verge of bankruptcy. The East India Company had cheaper prices on their tea compared to the Dutch, who smuggled the tea. The East India Company also had many colonists who actually benefited from this act. Ironic, isn't it? These colonists became agents for the actual company, but other colonists, in fact, were outraged by this act. They believed they were being deprived of their freedom and freedom of speech. America. Even though the prices of tea was cheaper compared to those of the Dutch, the colonists in which who smuggled the tea into Northern America now did not have the convenience of making a profit, causing disagreements and disputes in which soon led to include the Sons of Liberty. On December 16, 1773, a group of about 60 colonists were most likely motivated by a famous Sam Adams. Sam who? Sam Adams. The several thousands of townspeople dressed themselves as former Mohawk Indians and mounted 3 ships that belonged to the East India Company. These men soon began another act of rebellion by dumping more than 10,000 worth of East India Company merchandise into the harbor, the Boston Harbor, of course. The colonists did not end there. Many of them boycotted the coast of North America where the company traveled through. You will not take our freedom. You will not, we declare. Smallpox Vaccines and the American Revolution by Yana Davis, Brianna Floor, and Shani Edwards.
Smallpox is a highly contagious disease caused by the variola virus, and it leaves permanent scars.
An estimation of 3,000 men of the Northern Army were sick with smallpox. Washington faced a difficult choice whether or not to inoculate his army. Inoculating the soldiers would cure the disease and help them survive. His other option was to separate them and have them treated. However, if the British attacked while the men were out of the commission, the army could be destroyed. George Washington was 19 when he first got the disease during his only trip away from the American mainland in 1751. The illness only lasted a month and only left him with slight scarring. Soldiers arriving from England and Germany frequently brought smallpox to American shores. In addition, recruits from all over North America joined the Continental Army, increasing the scope of the disease. Within days of taking command of the Army, Cambridge, Massachusetts during the summer of 1775.
The history. In 1847, the Genova Medical College had accepted Elizabeth, in which she graduated first in her class and became the first woman of the United States to earn a medical degree.
America! America!
In 1853, Elizabeth and a former German doctor founded the New York Infirmary for Indigent Women and Children. Elizabeth and her sister also helped out during the Civil War as a nurse. Elizabeth Blackwell was not only a women's activist, but a leader. She overcame the social barriers that she was faced with, and left her mark on the world, allowing women around the world to have the same opportunities as men. And so, I begin to conclude my podcast. Thank you for tuning in and listening. Elizabeth, any last words?
No, Elizabeth, Caroline, Annabeth, thank you for having me here.
So, snowstorm were they trapped in? By? They were trapped by a snowstorm in Sierra Nevada mountains. It was around October of 1846. They were caught in frozen wilderness. The snowstorm eventually. The snowstorm is what led to the alleged cannibalism.
Oh yeah, because after you're trapped in
There's no
you can't go back.
You can't go hunting. It was cold. People died in the harsh weathers, so they just ended up eating the people that were left.
I heard that the people that went to the west, they were trained to survive. They had traps and everything. But when the donors tried to fish, they wasn't prepared, so they failed that. They did everything.
They weren't as prepared as they thought they were.
Yeah.
Next time, take a class or something, honey.
So, at the end of this whole journey, how many members survived? Because I heard it's 500 people, 50 left. I heard so many crazy stories about this. I just need the truth.
Well, the truth is, I don't know where you heard that there was 500 people, but there was only 89. There was almost 90. It's not fully sure how many people there were. They said it was almost 90, but about 90 men, women, and children. They were riding with children. Can you imagine how many children died? But out of the 89 people that went on the trip, only 46 survived. And surprisingly, 2/3 of the women and children survived, but only 1/3 of men survived. You would think that the men would be the strong ones to survive the cold, but they didn't. It was the women and the children that mostly survived.
High school. On today's episode of Night's History, we will be discussing an important figure in both medical and women's history. You may wonder, who is this important figure?
Oh, pick me. I think I know who it is.
Okay. You over there in the glasses. Who do you think is the important figure of today's episode?
Is it Elizabeth Blackwell? Europe's first female doctor?
That's right, you guessed it. Today's episode will be focused on Elizabeth Blackwell, and not only is she known as Europe's first female doctor, she's known as the first female doctor in America also. After her father's sudden death, her mother and her sisters had no choice but to work as educators in order to make ends meet for their family. Our important historical figure, Elizabeth Blackwell, was born February 3rd, 1821, in Bristol, England. Due to the financial struggles her and her family faced when she was young, her family moved from Europe to America when Elizabeth was 11 years old. The first place they settled was in New York. After that, they soon moved to Cincinnati, Ohio. Elizabeth grew up in a liberal household that stressed education. When Elizabeth was in her mid-20s, she went to go visit a friend. Her friend seemed to have suffered from a terminal disease and felt too embarrassed to visit a male doctor. Elizabeth's friend later explained how she would be way more comfortable with having a female doctor instead of a male. Hearing this come out of her own friend's mouth really did affect Elizabeth. This also inspired her to pursue a career in medicine.
The Civil War broke out in 1861. Dorothy volunteered her services and was named Superintendent of Nurses. Her job was setting up field hospitals and first aid stations, recruiting nurses, managing supplies, and setting up training programs for new nurses. Although she was focused and efficient, many found her very rigid and lacked social skills that were necessary to run a military bureaucracy. Do you blame her though? She spent her childhood in a house making tracks, and she didn't have any friends, so how's she gonna gain social skills? After the war, she briefly returned to her original job on behalf of the prisoners and the mentally ill. She contracted malaria in 1870 and was forced to stop traveling. She became so sick, she took up residence in a hospital that she founded 40 years earlier in Trenton, New Jersey. How ironic is that? She ended up in a hospital that she founded. Wow. She died 6 years later of being admitted to the hospital. Her physician said she died because of ossification of the arteries. This means her arteries became unusually thick and stopped the blood flowing. She died on July 17, 1887, at the age of 85. She was buried in Mount Auburn Cemetery in New Jersey. Dorothy received many honors in her lifetime. She was elected President for Life of the Army Nurses Association from when she was in the war. In 1983, the United States Postal Service honored her by issuing a 1-cent Dorothy Dix Great American Series postage stamp. A U.S. Navy transport ship serving in World War II was named USS Dorothy L. Dix, L because her middle name was Lind. This ship even got battle stars. The Bangor Mental Health Institute was renamed in August 2006 to the Dorothy Psychiatric Center. Even a crater in planet Venus was named Dix in her honor.
In Canada.